cops happily are clearing the weirdo protesters off of our campuses and out of our parks. Here is one clip of a rather surprised protester who never thought that the cops would actually do their job.
You're hurting me! You're hurting me!
A little toddler.
Help! Help! Help!
You're hurting me! Stop it, just dropping to the ground. This is when I say, like, hey, buddy. This is my little toddler. Hey, buddy, it's time to go to bed. I want to go to bed. It's time to go to bed. Buddy drops to the ground. I say, oh, I'll just pick you up. Huh? What? You can pick me up? And by the way, my toddler screams and cries a lot less than that college student. Little darker in some places. Not only are these pro-Palestine liberation protesters camping out on the sidewalk and the street and the quads, they're also donning keffiyehs and prohibiting Jewish students from entering campus.
You guys have closed the entrance. We are UCLA students. I have my ID right here. I'm being blocked off, not by the security guard, but by you two. You three. Oh, look, they're making their burger while I'm going this way. Excuse me. This is what they do. Everybody, look at this. Look at this. I'm a UCLA student. I deserve to go here. We pay tuition. This is our school. And they're not letting me walk in. My class is over there. I want to use that entrance. Why can't they go? Will you let me go in? This can be over in a second. Just let me and my friends go in to class.
We're not engaging with that.
Then you can move. Will you move?
We're not engaging with that.
Okay, we're going. We're going. I'm going in. I have my hands up. I'm not hurting them.
They don't really garner a lot of sympathy, do they? The keffiyehs around their face looking like jihadis doesn't really make me want to support these people as they're blocking a Jewish student from getting on campus. Now, we're viewing these protests as though this were about Israel, Palestine, the Gaza war. We're viewing these protests as though it were about Muslims versus Jews or something. And I guess there's an aspect of that. But I've been around a lot of college campuses for a long time. And these are the very same people. They are the same people who block the entrance of conservatives who want to go to a lecture, often lectures that I'm giving on campus. It's the same ones who are just standing there quietly, masks on, not moving. It's all the same tactics. It's all the same people. I remember back when I was in college, there was an Occupy Wall Street style protest on campus. And a bunch of these vagrants and indigents and drug addicts and bums and anarchists decided to pitch a bunch of gross tents on the green, the big green outside of campus. And they turned it into a tent city. A poor woman got raped there because it was a bunch of these ne'er-do-wells and criminals, and the cops didn't have the political backing and the politicians didn't have the courage to go arrest them as they ought to be arrested. And I remember at the time of the Occupy protests, Rudy Giuliani had a beautiful quote about the whole thing. He said, I had a rule as mayor of New York. I had a rule, and I enforced it as best I could and pretty effectively. The rule was, you're not allowed to sleep on the streets. Sleeping on the streets is a dysfunctional act. It harms the person. It harms society. It leads to unsanitary conditions that affect public health. That's my thought on it. You want to know my thought on these protests? My thought on these protests has basically nothing to do with the state of Israel or the status of the Palestinian Arabs in Gaza or the West Bank, or the expression of the American youth protest culture, or it has really nothing to do with any of that. My position on this stuff is that sleeping on the street is a dysfunctional act that harms the individual and society. Going around screaming all sorts of obscenities, wearing keffiyehs, it's dysfunctional. It's not civilized. It's not in keeping with the American tradition, the American free speech tradition, the American tradition of just how we comport ourselves in what's supposed to be a normal, good country. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. I'm sick of it. J.D. Vance, a very wise senator, who actually was at my college. He was in the law school, I was in the undergrad, when, I believe exactly when those Occupy protests were going on. So he saw the same thing I did firsthand. Maybe it radicalized him like it did to me. He had a similar and correct take on the whole situation. Right now, go to expressvpn.com/Michael Knowles Show. Using the internet without ExpressVPN, it's like leaving your keys in your car Well, you run into a gas station for a snack. On most occasions, you're probably fine, but what if you come back to see someone driving off with your car? Every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, or airports, any hacker on the same network can gain access to your personal data. It does not take much technical knowledge to hack someone. Just some cheap hardware is needed. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. I absolutely love ExpressVPN. It creates a secure encrypted tunnel between my devices and the internet so that hackers can't steal my sensitive data. All you need to do is fire up the app, click one button to get protected. Plus, it works on all devices, phones, laptops, tablets. You know I'm a total Luddite. Even I can use it. You just push that one button. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/Michael Knowles Show. That's expressvpn.com/Michael Knowles Show. You can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/Michael Knowles Show. You got the kid at UCLA is not allowed to get on campus. You got student demonstrators at Columbia. They've been shutting down Morningside Heights for well over a week now. And the university keeps saying, all right, this is it. This is the ultimatum. You protesters have to go away. And then what? They don't go away. And then the university caves. Now Jewish students aren't even showing up to class because they fear for their safety. Fair enough. You got wackos with kefias screaming about river to the sea. We're going to get rid of all the Jews or whatever. And so I get why they're not going to class. And the university is just so pathetic. They're so cowardly. So J.D. Vance, Senator Vance from Ohio, comes out and he says, my view on the campus protests is very simple. I don't care what your cause is, whether you're pro or anti-Israel or anything else. You don't get to turn our public places into a garbage dump. No civilization should tolerate these encampments. Get rid of them. I agree. I would go a little further than Senator Vance. I do care what your cause is. I favor a broad array of topics that we can debate in keeping with the American tradition. But to quote William F. Buckley Jr., back in the good old days, based Buckley, when he described himself as an epistemological optimist, I do think there are certain things that we can exclude. For instance, if one were to go out and burn the American flag, I favor the traditional jurisprudence on this question before recent decades when the Supreme Court said there is some First Amendment right to burn the flag. For the vast majority of American history, no such right was ever recognized, and there were plenty of statutes against flag burning because it's a totally incoherent act. It's, to use a word from G.K. Chesterton, it's like the thought that stops thought, which is the only thought that ought to be stopped, because one would be invoking one's bedrock American rights to burn the symbol of the country. And we treat, because we live in a world that's very symbolic and we recognize that signs and symbols really matter, as we've been talking about all show today, the flag is a symbol of the whole country. That's why when the flag drops on the ground, if you're raised right, you're going to go pick that flag up. You're not going to let the flag touch the ground. You're not going to allow the flag to become dirty. You're not going to leave the flag out in a rainstorm. Why not? It's just a piece of fabric, right? No one really, it's just, who cares? Because of what the flag symbolizes. And so it is an incoherent act. That's why there were special laws and regulations about what we could do with the flag before we blew this up because the conservatives, stupidly, I think, adopted the left's disingenuous embrace of free speech. The libs are going to accuse conservatives of hypocrisy on free speech when conservatives come out and say, we need to stop these protesters. And they're going to say the only reason why conservatives are moving to stop these protests now is because conservatives fanatically support the state of Israel. And it's true. There is a disproportionate and extreme support for the state of Israel on the American right, much more so than on the American left, which is now dominated by its Hamas faction. That's true. And they'll say, where were these conservatives when the BLM protests were happening? Why weren't they shutting down those protests? I happily would have, and I advocated for that at the time. Many conservatives did, and there were the squish conservatives like Mitt Romney who were, marching in the streets with those people. But there are going to be some conservatives who have articulated the principle that we need just to be able to say whatever you want, whenever you want to say it. That's American free speech. And those people are going to be hypocrites when it comes to these protests. But that ain't me, baby. That has not been my position. In fact, I wrote a whole book called Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds, about how that is not what free speech has traditionally meant in America. It's not conservative. It's not particularly good. We always need limits. All societies are defined by taboos and standards and norms. And so I hate to see the chaos and disorder in our country and the injustice that these kinds of demonstrations are leading to. But I have to tell you, I feel a little bit vindicated because when I wrote my book, whenever it was, 3-4 years ago now, My view was a fringe view on the right. At that time, all these conservatives were presenting themselves as free speech absolutists. And I said, guys, that's not historical. That's totally crazy. It's not philosophically coherent. It's not conservative. Like, you guys are taking a short-term win here, but it's going to come back to bite you. And it is coming back to bite them now. But now I'm happy to say conservatives are coming back around to realizing, hey, we live in a society. We're allowed to have standards and norms. And as JD, I think ahead of the curve for a lot of Republican politicians, says, you don't get to turn our public places into a garbage dump. No civilization should tolerate this. Totally agree. And I'm glad many other people are agreeing with us now too. That was a great clip. Now, hold up, ring the bell, subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. See you next time.